Hey, welcome to the Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, and this is the show where women share their personal power tools, which I define as the tools, techniques, or strategies which have enabled their success in life and business. I ask all of my guests to be real, raw, honest, authentic, and vulnerable, dare I say. So this is a girl chat show like no other, where we really do dive into what it is to be a powerful woman, the real tools behind a woman's success. Now, if you're on this channel, do hit that subscribe button right now and hit the bell to make sure that you're notified when new shows are added. You can also subscribe to find us on Instagram, which is at the Lovelda Show. You'll find all links that have been shared in the show in the show notes. And right now we're going to hop straight over whilst I do a audio introduction before we jump into the full show. So let's get started. Hey, chicas! Welcome to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast, the show where women share their personal power tools, the techniques, strategies, and ways of being which have enabled their success in life and business. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, an international MC and host and female speaking business coach on a mission to unleash authentic, powerful female voices onto the world. This is a girl chat show like no other chat show out there. All of my guests get real, raw, and authentic and share absolute pure gold nuggets of wisdom. And today's episode, well, it's no different. In today's episode, we're going to be uncovering the power tools of Gina Osborn. Gina is an expert in navigating chaos, crisis, and change, having responded to catastrophic terrorist attacks and cyber hacks as an FBI special agent and chasing Cold War spies in the army. Gina knows crisis can be managed, chaos can be controlled, and change is inevitable. Gina serves through speaking, coaching, and hosting executive roundtables, VIP days, and masterminds. She's provided tools and techniques to eliminate self-imposed obstacles, stop tolerating the intolerable, having the courage to lead authentically, and create clarity and confidence to become, well, unstoppable. In this episode, Gina and I talk about feminine leadership in a masculine context. See, the thing that you don't know is that Gina is a girly girl. Having been to modeling school, she didn't allow the masculine environment to taint her femininity when she was working in law enforcement. So I had to understand her secrets to navigating this space whilst maintaining her femininity. Now listen, if you're ready to get paid more for sharing your expertise, please use the link in the show notes to download your free copy of my Speaker Marketing Blueprint, which is your guide to building the speaker marketing assets that match and reflect your expertise and increase your speaking fee regardless of if you're brand new to speaking or if you're ready to level up your speaking career. You'll also find in the notes links to my latest offers and any of the links that have been shared by my guests during the course of this particular episode. And finally, to make sure that you always get your regular fix of this show, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the bell to get notified that when new updates are added. And if you prefer to have the updates emailed straight into your inbox, then do subscribe. Now, I think that's probably quite enough for me for now, because I really need to hear how one works in a masculine environment and maintains their femininity. So let's get on with the show. Hey, chicas. Welcome back to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. This episode is going to be one powerhouse because I done gone and found you. You know, when you're so excited, you can't even get your words out. That's where I'm at right now. I'm so excited, I can't even get my words out. So this episode, I'm so excited because for those of us who have that bit of like masculine versus feminine energy and, you know, who are naturally like powerhouses, but you just don't quite know how to show up in your like more like womanly nature. Well, I went and found us a guest who has decades of experience in law enforcement. I'm talking like FBI and like police forces and stuff like that. Like not the pretend law enforcements, like the law enforcements, like the ones, you know, they're gonna lock you up. Those enforcements. But this chica used to turn up in her skirt and her heels because that's just who she was. I'm like, how do you get into such a masculine space with such a feminine power and managed to work your way up the ranks. So I had to find out. Please welcome my guest today, Gina Osborn.
Thank
Girl.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm not lying. I just couldn't not. I'm not sure you're supposed to say it like that, but it doesn't matter. Y'all know what I mean when I say I couldn't not have her here. Maybe it's a double negative, but just stick with the essence of what I'm saying, people. But to me, it is fascinating because, especially in relation to this idea of feminine power and women's power, like a conversation that I see quite often, or a tussle that women have very often, especially in spaces where maybe they're the first woman to show up in that space, right? Where there aren't any other people who look like them. And so therefore, in order to navigate that space, we feel like we have to sacrifice some of the things that make us female. All right, then, Gina. So I need to get straight into it, girl. Let's go back. Let's just roll this back a little bit. How on earth did you even get into law enforcement in the first place? So let's cover that one off.
Sure. I was always a big dreamer. When I was a child, I always wanted to be a writer. I was fascinated by the Cold War. This was back in the 80s when I was in high school. And I thought I wanted to be an international woman of intrigue. That was my goal in life. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm fascinated with the KGB and the CIA and everything that happens with that. I want to be a CIA operative. And in order to do that, I needed to have two things. I needed to have a sense of adventure, which I knew I already had, and I had to have a 4-year degree. So fast forward, I'm in my second year of college. I am out of money. And a young man came up to me and sat down and started telling me about the Army's counterintelligence program, where I could go overseas and be in Europe. I could chase spies. I can live on the economy and wear civilian clothes. And so if anybody knows the movie Private Benjamin, it was definitely a Private Benjamin moment. And the next day I enlisted in the Army, and that's when it all started.
So you were literally an international woman of mystery.
Well, I'm not sure if I really was, but in my mind, I was.
Well, in my mind, that's the story I'm going to tell everybody. Like, I know somebody who's an international woman of mystery. That is literally going to be the story I'm going to tell. So how was that as an experience? Because I don't imagine there were many other women in that role.
There weren't. When I enlisted in the Army, only about I think there were maybe 10 or 12% of all of the soldiers were women. So there weren't a whole lot of us. And I was a girl from Orange County, California. I was a Barbizon School of Modeling graduate. So I'm kind of a girly girl, and I still am. And so my first sergeant used to chase after me because I would wear lipstick with my battle dress uniforms. So he would always make me do push-ups, and that was my payment for wearing my red lipstick with my uniform. So
I can't even believe that you used to rock up and just put the red lipstick on anyway. But I suppose that meant that you just got a lot stronger because you were doing more push-ups than anybody else.
Exactly. But I never really felt compelled. I mean, I had a very, very strong mother. My parents got divorced when I was young, and she had to go out and whip the world. And never did I hear anything about glass ceilings. I always heard that anything I wanted to do, I could do as long as I could dream it. And so she was very, very supportive, and I got to watch her go out and whip the world. So that was already in my vocabulary. So there wasn't anything that was going to be holding me back based on my mom being a great role model for me.
Do you know what? Role mothers are like so important to have somebody that you can look to. And at the same time, you can have a fabulous role model of a mother and then get into an environment that just beats the dream out of you, or beats you into submission in such a way that you let go of the essence of who you are. So how the heck did you avoid that? Because it's not necessarily a cushy environment where it's soft and fluffy and talking about feelings and that sort of stuff. It doesn't strike me, law enforcement in general, especially the Army, doesn't strike me as a soft, compassionate place to be in where those dreams are muddy cuddled and people think about how you might feel about something. I don't suspect that was a sort of language that people were using or environment that you were surrounded in.
No, it definitely was not. And I went through basic training, boot camp, and I ate a lot of dirt and ran out in the cold and did push-ups in mud and all sorts of crazy things. And that was a time when you had the female platoons and the male platoons. So it wasn't really, I mean, women, there had been women before us for sure, but we were definitely paving the way for the women behind us. But, you know, I knew what got me through that and what got me through all the training and what got me to Europe was the vision that I had, the plan that I had, is that I have this long-term plan and I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to accomplish these goals. And so whenever I was really, really shattered, you know, after a long 12-hour day, you know, marching around the compound at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, I just remembered that I'm doing this for a reason, and I'm going to go out there and make my dreams come true.
So at some point, did they manage to get that red lipstick off you, or did you take the red lipstick all the way through your career?
You know, I've always high heels. I mean, for the last 11 years I transitioned into the FBI after I got out of the Army, but this is who I am. And I never really apologized. I think in the beginning, I felt that, okay, well, I don't want to be too feminine, but then I don't want to appear too masculine, because back then when I joined the FBI in 1996, only 14% of FBI agents were women.
Wow.
So, you know, we had to, you never want to, you know, stand out really, but this is who I am. And that's what they hired me for. I mean, I have my skill set is communication and collaboration and networking, but this is how I do it. So they had to accept me for what I was, and they did.
And I'm just curious, because one of the things that tends to be a put off for some women in terms of showing up more feminine, wearing the heels, putting on the lipstick, even if that's naturally who they are outside of a work environment, let's say, is I don't want to be sexualized. Like, I don't want to be in that space. And now, rather than focusing on me and my words and my abilities, you're now focusing on the external. And that's the reason why I'm moving ahead. What do you say to that? Or is that something you experienced for yourself?
Well, one thing my mother used to tell me is it's none of your business what other people think of you.
It's true.
So if you're so wrapped up in, okay, I have to look a certain way, then you're not being your authentic self. I mean, you need to be in a place where you're going to be accepted. And the only way to be accepted is to take that Maserati, you know, on a test drive and see if it's going to work. Now, I'm not saying wear short skirts and a ton of makeup and this, that, or the other. I mean, I learned what was acceptable and what was appropriate the more I, you know, was in a professional life. But when you start taking away and acting like something you're not, then you're never going to be an authentic leader. So it's so important to think about who you are, know what your skill set is, and focus on your skill set, because that's what's going to get you to where you want to be, not pretending to be something else.
And what am I saying? A fine line between being appropriate in the space and still being authentic. How do you tread that balance between showing up in an office environment or a corporate or professional environment in a way that is appropriate for the environment, but without losing the sense of your soul? What should we look out for to know when we've gone too far?
Well, I think when you go into an environment, like when I entered into the FBI, I mean, I had already been in the military for 6 years. I was already a professional person, and I knew that FBI agents wore suits. Okay, so that's fine. But I could still wear skirts if I was going to be in the office. I knew that if I was going to go do a search warrant, or if I was going to go out and arrest somebody, then I needed to wear pants or jeans. So you just know, but I don't think, when we get into our own head and that becomes the constant discussion, okay, am I going to be accepted if I wear this, or if I'm going to do that? You can't really go in and be a man in a male dominated field and expect others to follow you as a leader.
Do you know, I love that you say that find the balance between appropriate and inappropriate and authenticity and actually, if you want to be respected, because I think this is the bit we forget, right? If you actually want to be respected fully, you don't gain that respect by pretending, because people can sniff it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There has to be a happy medium. You have to find a happy medium. I mean, you're not going to a disco if you're an attorney. You definitely want to dress the part, but that doesn't mean you have to give away your femininity to fit in. And it took me. I mean, being in the Army, that was definitely a great training ground on how to know who I was and how to handle myself and create boundaries and teach people how to treat me and how I wanted to be treated. But yeah, it's something, you have to test the waters, but you shouldn't have to give up who you are. If you're giving up who you are, then you're not in the right place.
Oh, I love that. And I think sometimes we just often, I like that the permission that it gives, right? To remember that there's a choice in it. And there's a really important word you said earlier, which was you learned your own boundaries in terms of teaching people how to interact with you such that you could be respected. Have you got any like golden tips or clues that we can run with that might help somebody who's perhaps still has a sense of who they are and feels like it's not being expressed, or that people are walking over them or taking them for granted in some way because they're female in an environment that's quite masculine? Have you got any tips for counterbalancing that and being able to have your voice heard just as much as the next person?
You have to have confidence that what you're saying should be heard, number one. And you cannot apologize for who you are or being at the table because for some reason you're sitting at that table. So accept the fact that you're there and contribute. So that's what I tell people. But when it comes to creating boundaries, I mean, that's something that I work with my coaching clients all the time. You have to, we waste so much time when we don't create boundaries, because then when someone oversteps our boundaries, then we think, well, I'm offended by that, and that person shouldn't have done that, and then you call all of your girlfriends.
Oh, it's a whole drama. Everybody has
to know. It is a whole process, and then you spend energy and you're so upset, and then you can't sleep because you're plotting that person's demise because they overstepped their boundaries. But really, if you would have just given them the finger, and I don't mean that finger, I mean this finger, and just had a conversation and just said, hey, I don't appreciate what you did or said. I mean, we don't have to do this all the time. We really have to pick the hills that we want to die on or we're willing to die on. But you have to take people aside, and maybe they didn't realize that they had offended you, or maybe they didn't realize that what they said was crossing a line. But that's when you train them and say, hey, I don't appreciate that. But, and I would ask you not to do that again. And then it's over. You don't have to call your friends and talk about it. You don't have to plot anybody's demise. And sometimes you find that maybe you took it in a different way than was intended. So that's why it's so important to, create your boundaries and treat people, and again, teach people how to treat you.
Put your big girl panties on and have the grown-up conversation. That's what I'm hearing. Put on your big girl panties and have the grown-up conversations that you need to be having with people, because I think sometimes we shy away from it. There was something you said earlier that I want to pick up on, which was around not apologizing for being at the table. Do you know what I noticed? It took me a while, but I noticed, and I noticed it with a lot of women, we apologize for shit we shouldn't be sorry for. Look, just everything's a sorry. Like you'll watch somebody, I had to catch myself. Somebody would walk into me and I would say sorry to them. Like, how do you work? How do you work that out? You bump me and I'm going, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry
Yes.
for what? I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. It was you.
Yes,
But I
yes.
wanted to pick up on that because I know, at least for me, when I kind of really thought about it, I was apologizing for a whole ton of things I really need not be apologizing for.
When I was in the Army, when we first got there, you had 40 women living in one giant room and sleeping in bunk beds. Okay, so just imagine that you had women from all over the United States all coming together. We'd never met each other, and we were getting hutted along by our big mean drill sergeants, and we were running around and we were bumping into each other, and then of course we would say sorry. But my drill sergeant interpreted sorry not as apologizing, but being sorry or pitiful. And so every time he heard any one of us saying that we were sorry, he would take us up to the highest hill and he would make us roll down it until we learned that we weren't pitiful, that we were actually warriors. And so since then, that is something that you will not hear come out of my mouth, because I am not pitiful. I mean, if I need to actually apologize to somebody, I will apologize for that. But you're right, by saying sorry all the time, you're really saying that, hey, I am less than, especially when it's not something that you need to be sorry about.
I mean, I had to check. I will tell you the subtlety in which this it's like an unconscious sorry. It's just, I don't know, verbiage. It just kind of came out like Tourette's. Sorry, 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 sorry. Like, why am I apologizing? It would be silly things like I would be writing an email and perhaps it's taken me a while to apologize, like to respond, because I've just been busy. And I would start with this whole freaking rigmarole. I'm like, what the hell am I apologizing for? Sometimes I am genuinely sorry. It's like, I really should have gotten back to you. It's been like 4 weeks and I promised you something at a certain time. And in that case, I'm genuinely sorry it's taken me a while to get back to you. But if it's been a week, what am I apologizing for? It's been a week. I was busy. Stuff happens. Like, I'm not working in surgery. I don't work in accident and emergency. I think we'll be okay that it took me a week to respond. But it was little things like that where I would just find myself explaining myself or apologizing or putting extra unnecessary words around things rather than just saying, this is how it is. No, I'm really sorry.
Yes,
I'm not going to be able to refund you. No, I'm not sorry. The refunds are not, there's no refund. Unfortunately for you, it's a no refund policy. The product that you bought does not come with a refund. It's just.
Exactly. And I have two things on that. One, think about your boss going around and saying that he or she is sorry about something, and you notice that that is just a routine that your boss is doing. Think about how that would challenge that person's credibility, that would, do you really want to lead that person if that, they have that insecurity where they're sorry all the time? So just think about how you're perceived when you do that. And then I think that'll help you stop it. But what goes hand in hand with that, and that's something that I work with my clients on all the time, is taking things personally, is how we, especially as women, take things personally. I mean, that email that didn't come for a week, well, why didn't they send me the email? Do they not like me? Did I do something wrong? Is there something about that? But when we take things personally, we're inserting ourselves into the middle of everything. And now we become the center of the universe. And do you really think that person woke up that morning and decided not to send you an email just to spite you because they didn't like you? No. I mean, how many times do we insert ourselves into the spotlight as a victim or an unnecessary hero when we don't have to? So if you take that away and we don't take things personally, again, we have so much time and energy to move forward with our goals.
Oh, I love it. It's so unconscious. I think that's what it is. And I love what you say about, think about how you'd be perceived if that was your manager or you're working with somebody who's constantly apologizing. There's just something about that lands as lacking confidence and lacking conviction. And that's not to say you don't apologize when you're wrong, but it's those unnecessary sorries.
But if you want to be the boss, you need to act like the boss, and the boss sits at the table when they have the option of sitting at the table or around the table, and the boss communicates their not their feelings, but communicates what they want to have happen in a concise and articulate and confident way. So again, if you want to be the boss, you need to act like the boss.
Oh, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. The subtleties, because I think it's just lots of little subtleties where perhaps I'm hoping somebody's having a light bulb moment right here where something just went off and you were like, holy heck, because it was those sorts. I'll tell you another one from me that I noticed. I used to notice when I walked, I would walk with my head down. I was like, what the heck? I can't even remember who mentioned it to me. And I thought, I'm going to test this for a while. And then when I'd walk, I deliberately walk with my head up. So I'm not looking down at the ground. And I noticed most of the people who had their head down, women.
Yes. Again, act like the boss. If you want to be the boss, act like the boss. But that's another thing you have to be very careful of, is when you walk with your head down, you can be perceived as a good victim because you're not walking with confidence. And also when we're on the phone, if we're looking down all the time, we're not in the present. So you're making yourself a victim of crime when you're looking down and you're not paying attention to your surroundings. So that's another reason why you shouldn't do that.
Oh, do you know what? We just learned how to keep ourselves safe here too. Stop. Keep your eyes up, people. Eyes up.
Yes.
You're not paid to see how much chewing gum's on the pavement. That's not what we're here for.
That's right. That's right.
That's somebody else's job. Unless you're cleaning the pavement, there's no need to be looking at it to that extent. What has been the most surprising thing that you found kind of transitioning from so many years in law enforcement and the roles that you had where you had to make really big decisions and, in a position of authority, but also in a very kind of male dominated space, and now working with people around in terms of coaching people and seeing what light bulbs have you noticed? I'm asking the question that I ask people when they say, is there any other question? Is there some question I should ask that I haven't asked?
Well, I'll tell you.
Kind of like, the one I haven't thought of, that one. Right. The answer to that one.
When I first went into it, when I was young, I was in my early 20s, I thought I had to be perfect. So that whole perfection syndrome, because I didn't want to be considered a weak sister. And, that's something, when you work in a male dominated environment, that's the last thing that you want to get pegged as. And as I grew through my career, I wound up, when I retired in 2018, I was the assistant special agent in charge of cyber and computer forensics in the FBI in Los Angeles. I was running the biggest cyber computer forensics program in the entire FBI. And I've found that embracing my flaws, embracing my imperfections, that's what made me authentic. That's what made people want to follow me. And, probably halfway through my career, I stopped trying to be perfect because I found that by laughing at myself when I'm not perfect, by showing what my personality really is, then that's when I can get that leadership going and people are going to see me as an authentic leader.
It's so ironic. It's like all the things that you think you're supposed to be doing, as soon as you stop thinking about it and just get on with it, then it all drops into place.
Yeah.
But I guess there's a fear that maybe if they see me, then the vultures are going to come in and, they're not going to accept that and it's going to be a problem. So I have to keep this facade up. So it's really interesting to hear, well, as soon as I just stopped trying to be somebody else.
And, instead of stop thinking inside, start thinking outside and we are very credible. We have amazing skills that we have to offer. And if you focus more on contributing instead of beating yourself up or thinking you have to be perfect or trying to change or thinking what you need to change that's inside of you. If you just accept who you are, okay, yeah, I might not be perfect. One of the things on my evaluation every year when they would send out these evaluations, leadership evaluations, people used to say that I couldn't take criticism well. And I thought, what do they mean I can't take criticism well, right?
Which is exactly the reaction of somebody who takes criticism really well.
Exactly. But you know what? Okay, I get that. And that's who I am. Okay, maybe I'll try and take criticism better. That's fine. But am I going to change everything to stop what I'm doing as far as getting the ball down the field just to learn how to take criticism better? I'll improve eventually, but that's not going to slow me down.
Yeah, it's a balance between awareness and then getting sucked into something so much that you just forget that there are other things that are naturally really good. And this is something where if we've got all of these good things, if you can just keep moving the needle on this other thing, then you'll be even better, but not drop everything else and now go, oh, okay, now I need to do everything around fixing this thing. It doesn't need fixing, but an awareness that maybe you just put a little strategy in there where when somebody gives you criticism, you just breathe and say, I'll come back to you in 5 minutes once I've had a chance to rant about it. Maybe not say the first thing that pops into your mind. It's just useful.
Yes, no, I agree. But one thing that you said, about trying to be better, we don't need to be better. We are good who we are right now. And, we can get better along the way, but focusing on we have to be better before we put in for a job, before we, get up and give a briefing to the boss. Oh, I have to work on my speaking skills, or I have to work on this or work on that. Men don't do that. Men are going to put in for jobs they're not qualified for. Men are going to get up and speak anytime they can, whether they're prepared or they're not. So we have to stop ourselves from saying, okay, I have to be better before I do this. We need to just do it, or else we're never going to do it.
I love that. I mean, I'm laughing my ass off over here because my husband is exactly the same. I mean, I clocked it as soon as we got married. And I was like, holy heck, no wonder this dude be getting so much done, because he just doesn't care. Like, he just throws anything. I mean, he gets better, but he just gets started. And I'm like, but it's going to fall apart. And he's like, we're moving. I'm like, but the wheels aren't on yet. We're moving. He's got a motor in. We'll attach them as we go. Exactly. And I think, I love that you reminded us of that, because we cannot as women complain about a lack of positions of leadership and a lack of this and a lack of that, and we need more representation. If we're up, the reality is we're up against people who, we're up against a group of society who only need to be 20% ready to be like, pick me.
Yes, exactly. And I'm a living example of it, because when they posted the cyber and computer forensics assistant special agent in charge position in Los Angeles, I have no technical expertise whatsoever. And I put in for the job and I got it. And once I got it, I thought, okay, well, I was in the military. I've got all this great FBI experience. I'm going to lead from the front and my people are going to follow me. But then I learned that cyber people, if you don't have technical skill, they don't really follow you. So I was kind of turning around when I was marching away and there wasn't anybody following me. So I just changed my leadership style. I became a servant leader. I got everybody what they needed to do their jobs. And there's so many different ways to skin a cat once you get there, but don't stop yourself from getting there because you don't think you can figure out how to move forward once you got the job.
Just if the opportunity shows up, take the leap and know you'll figure it out. I think that's it. Just take that leap and know you'll figure it out, because men be doing it all the time.
Absolutely.
And they seem to be doing all right from it.
Yeah, there's this picture that I have right over here. I can't get it, but it's a picture of a woman and she's in a big tutu and she's on a cliff and she just jumped off the cliff. And I love that picture because she's not falling. and she's just out there with her tutu, and she's taken the risk, and she has that courage. And there are so many courageous women out there, and I'm so proud to be a woman and have courage. So gosh, just go out and do whatever you can think of, because if you can dream it, you can do it.
What Gina said, girls, what Gina said. Well, now I'm really curious, because I don't think I've had somebody on the show who's worked in quite such a male-dominated space before, and retained a feminine essence throughout it, and for such a long period of time, because sometimes people go in and then it's too much, and so they just come out of it. But you had decades in that space and loved it and thrived in the space. So what I want to understand from you is, what is it that you think makes a woman powerful?
Again, it's that authenticity. It's knowing who they are and embracing their imperfections. I completely 100% believe that. And when I was running the cyber program for the FBI, that's who I was. I mean, I knew I wasn't a technical person, but I was a huge networker. I was a collaborator. I knew our FBI headquarters. I knew how to get them money and equipment, and they love me for that. So, so again, just embrace who you are and use those skill sets. When I go out and speak, I do this presentation called Lead Like a Lady. And what it's all about is, if we just took the skills that we are good at as women, collaboration, networking, communication, empathy, all of these different things, and we just became really, really good at those things, we're going to be great leaders, because that's what the leaders of today need. And so when I have these presentations, that's when the light bulb comes on, because when we're trying to be, okay, well, I'm going to be a great problem solver, if we're not that great at solving problems, then, we're going to be focusing on that instead of the things that we're good at, and that's just going to slow us down. So to get to the next base, embrace what you're good at, and you can shine from that.
Oh, love it. And it's so much easier, right? So
It
much
really
easier
is.
that I'm kind of like, why are you going to spend so much time trying to fix a weakness that at best you'll get to mediocre, when you can
Right.
take a strength and shine? Like, to me, it makes no sense.
Exactly.
I'm not good at that, so I'm okay with it. I'm just going to get it to a place that it's not a pain.
Oh yeah. And I could have gone to cyber courses, but I could have done about 150 cyber courses, and I wouldn't have a thimbleful of knowledge compared to what my agents had. So I knew that. So I had to kind of pivot and go after what I was good, and how I could serve them better was by being a servant leader, keeping all my racehorses on the reservation, and getting them what they needed to do their job.
Love it. I love the creativity as well. Just, you don't actually need to jump out of your lane. It's better to kind of look and say, well, what am I good at, and how can I best apply my superpowers to this situation to get the best results? And often we can read a description so one-dimensionally that we kind of feel like that's what they need, versus being able to say, well, I can help to serve in this situation with my skill set in a way maybe they didn't even think about. They don't know my superpowers, but when they do, they're not going to forget them.
That's right. That's exactly right. I 100% agree.
Speaking of superpowers, now I need to know yours, because I want to know how somebody who was in not beauty school, I want to know it. I need to know how somebody who is so girly gets through that space and then comes out and is still as girly as ever. I'm like, Gina ain't playing. She's still here. I kind of want to know, I need to understand how you tick a little bit. I need to understand what it is that makes you so awesome sources. So I've designed one question which really helps to get to the core of your awesomeness in such a way that maybe we can reflect it for ourselves, because I want to steal a bit of it if I can figure out what it is. So get a pen, ladies. I'm going to see if we can get to the core of this.
Okay.
So if we were to take everything that you've done to date in life and business and boil it down, like just to its essence, to like, let's just say 3 core things that you would say have been fundamental to your success. And they could be tools, strategies, ways of being, but I just kind of want to know, what is the essence? What is your secret sauce? That's what I want to know. Just in 3 things I can take, your secret sauce. I call them power tools.
Okay. My power tools, I would say, don't take no for an answer. If you can't get through the front door, there's always a back door or a side door or a basement door. So you
Or a
have to be,
tunnel.
or a tunnel, just be creative. But I always had a plan, and I had a vision of where I wanted to be. And that was sort of my guiding light to get where I wanted to be. I mean, sometimes I wound up in a completely different space, and that was fine because it was better than the last plan. But just having a plan instead of just kind of being in a holding pattern waiting for something to happen to you, go out and make things happen. And the last
Stop
one,
being in a holding pattern, waiting for stuff to happen. I had to repeat it because people could skim over that, but I know I've been there before, when it's, when this happens, then I can. And that's the holding pattern, where you're waiting for the world to line up in order to make a decision, versus having a plan and just executing that, like the girl in your picture with the tutu.
yes,
Just jump.
just jump. Exactly. Exactly. And I think the last one, my absolute favorite quote from Albert Einstein, that I'm going to modify a little bit, is, "She who attempts the absurd can achieve the impossible." So go out and, okay, that's never been done before. Okay, well, then I'm going to do it. Okay, well, that's impossible. You can never do it. No, I think I can. And you'd be surprised that if you start playing in that absurd territory, there are things that you can do that you never even dreamed of.
That's so true. It is so true. And I hadn't heard that quote before. I like you changed it to she. I hadn't heard that quote before, but I really do love it, because we have this idea that impossible is something we shouldn't play with.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I like the idea of playing with the absurd.
Exactly.
To me, it just sounds playful. I'm like, oh, that sounds crazy. Let me do it. Let me jump in there and have a go.
I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and she was talking, she described to me what she wanted to be. And she sent me a video of it. And it was this beautiful black stallion running on the beach, no obstacles, nothing. And we had the conversation, okay, so how is your life working that you can't be that? Okay, well, she's taking things personally. So that's stopping the stallion. Every time the stallion starts to run, okay, that stops the stallion. Okay, and then she's not creating boundaries, and then she's tolerating too much. So when we think about all of the things in our lives, what's stopping us from being that stallion running down the beach? And if we can kind of clear those things up, we're going to have a much better time getting to where we're going.
Oh, clear up the obstacles, because I think we're very good at complaining about them. Like, we're very good at kind of, because no, just get rid of it. Make it stop.
Yes.
Make it stop. Just say no.
Yes. And we tolerate so much. And that's how we start feeling overwhelmed. And I call myself an expert, but I specialize in navigating and leading through chaos, crisis, and change. And one of the big things when I talk about chaos is, the more things we tolerate, every time something comes up, then we're just absolutely overwhelmed. So I tell my clients to make a list of all of the things that we're tolerating. And that could be bad behaviors from our coworkers, our neighbors, our bosses, ourselves. It could be relationships that aren't working. It could be as easy as the boxes in the garage that need to be unpacked, or the leaky faucet in the kitchen. And I tell my clients to write down a list of all of the things, and you could have 50, 100 of things that you tolerate, from your relationships, whatever, and then take the easiest one and prioritize them, and then just start marking them off the list. Okay, the boxes are undone. Oh, okay, that gives me some more space. I fixed the faucet. Okay, now I'm feeling more space. And the more space that you create for yourself, the more you can not only eliminate the chaos in your life, but you can see around the corners, so you can prevent things from coming to you, whether it be conflict or chaos or unnecessary change.
It's so funny you say that, because I had a mastermind call with my clients this week. And one of the things I said to them is, when I'm really busy, like there's a lot of things going on in my life, I said, I write a to-do list. And they're all looking at me like, yeah, okay, cool, Lovelda, we all do to-do lists. I said, but the way I do my to-do list is I go, what's sucking up the most of my energy right now? And I start with that, because what I need to do when I'm really busy is have more available energy. And if there's something that's just nagging at the back of my mind, and it has been for a while, me doing the other things on my list doesn't actually have me feel accomplished or give me a sense of space. So I'm constantly feeling like I'm drowning. Whereas if I start with the things on the list, like the things that you suggest that are just, what are these things that you're tolerating? Or, you know, in my terms, it would be, what is the thing that's taking up the most of my energy right now? And if it's a conversation I've been avoiding, well, that conversation is going to happen today, because it's now taking up so much space. And afterwards, sometimes I'm exhausted, but the next day I wake up so energized, because it was the thing that was eating up all of this energy that I didn't have available. So now it's easier for me to get more stuff done.
That's perfectly said. That's exactly right. Because how good do you feel when something's over? It's like, okay, now I can go out and do the things that I haven't been doing because I've been pining over this situation or that situation. And one other thing is, when we pick fights or we have fights, especially now that we're all in such close quarters with our families, if we're having the same argument over and over and over again, and that argument is never going to be resolved, no matter how long you're in that relationship, avoid it. It's as simple as just avoiding it. And then that way you don't have to, again, use all of your energy to try and fix. If it can't be fixed, it can't be fixed. Move on to something else.
Yeah. Big girl panties, I'm hearing. We're hearing a lot of stuff about, you're going to have to find the big girl panties and face some stuff head on. Mama mia, Gina, we have covered so much. Oh, the juiciness, and some beautiful reminders. Like, sometimes we just have to hear things multiple times to really get how effective they can be. And if you're hearing it and you're thinking, I've heard this before, well, there's a reason you're hearing it again now, because there's some more action you need to take. So don't brush it off, girl. Don't brush it off, because I've heard that already. There's a reason you're listening in right now and you're hearing it again. So do something with it. But Gina, there'll be people now just like, ooh, what she be doing one-to-one and stuff. I feel like I need a little bit of this fiery sister in my life. She knows what she's talking about, and she is not going to play. Like, I could do with getting to that point of feeling that confident and assertive within myself. And I could really do with some help around it. So for people, how do people get in touch with you? Where do they find you?
They can find me at my website at Gina L Osborn, OSBORN.com, GinaLOsborn.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, Gina L Osborn. I'm on Twitter, Gina L Osborn. I'm on Instagram, Gina L Osborn. So come and find me. I'm happy to help any way I can.
All the links are in the show notes. It's a new dance I developed. It's all in the show notes. So you can go down and check the links. But here's the best bit, folks. She brought presents.
I did. I brought presents. So if you go to my website, GinaLOsborn.com, I have a free ebook that is called 7 Key Ways to Eliminate Chaos from Your Business and Your Life. And it's a free download. And if you would like to get it, you can get it right now, and it'll come to you. All you have to do is go to my website.
In the show notes. Seriously, if you have stuff going on, if you can't see the wood for the trees, you need to get yourself a copy of this ebook. Click on the notes. Gina, I can't summarize today because we've covered so much stuff, and I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, it's still percolating in my head. I'm like, my goodness. So if there was one thing, because we've spoken about so many different things in relation to stepping up as a woman and being yourself and being counted and having your voice make a difference and leading powerfully. So if there was just one thing that you could leave our guests with today, and if this is the only thing that they take from the show, what would that be?
If you want to be a great leader, take the skill sets that you're good at and make them better. Never try to be somebody that you're not. And again, she who attempts the absurd can achieve the impossible.
You heard it here first. You need to go out there and do some absurd things. Love it. Go out and be absurd. Attempt it. Be you, step into be you, do you. I'm going to keep saying it because it's coming up as a theme this season. Be you, do you. The more authentic you are, the more powerful you're going to be able to be in this world, and the bigger the impact you'd have. And you know I am here right in your corner, cheerleading you forward. That's pretty much all we got time for today, though, folks. We're there. We've made it to the end of yet another show. Gina, you have been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom so openly and honestly and authentically, and just giving us those pearls of wisdom, because we need reminding, and there's lots of things in there that I have been reminded of through this conversation. And I know there'll be people having light bulb moments. So thank you so much for joining today and for sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure. Mwah.
You have been listening to The Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. You better believe that in the show notes, there are some other juicy goodies just from me for you. So you want to hit on that. And don't miss another episode. If you are not yet on our list because you haven't subscribed to get this in your inbox, I don't know what you'll be waiting for. Until next time, my gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful souls. Ciao.